What's up, Amazon sellers, and welcome back to the weekly show where we share some news and answer your guys' questions. I'm Chris Grant, and to my right is my ex-denticist co-host, Chris Rasick. Now, for those of you who may be new here, our job is to try to make your life a little bit easier as an Amazon seller. Maybe you've got questions about flipping clearance from Target. Maybe you want to pull the trigger on some online arbitrage. Perhaps you want to get into wholesale. Or maybe you just have a Keepa quandary. Well, we're here to help. We'll also share some stats, some news stories, and the occasional business maxim to help you be a better business owner. Chris, how's your Sunday going, man?
Sunday's going pretty well. Thanks for asking. I'm a little excited for the first time in quite some time for the U.S. men's national team. Gold. I think it's Gold Cup final tonight. They're taking on Mexico, which is a pretty fun rivalry. So I don't like soccer, but I find that I do like the U.S. men's national team, especially when there's a story. So I am going to tune into that. Looking forward to it. So
yeah, absolutely. I'll have to try to check that out. I do love going to see a soccer match in person. It's the energy is often palpable with those guys, but TV, man, that's rough.
Yeah, it must be like the baseball fan in me. I don't mind slow buildups and momentum and whatnot. It makes me think I still have the old fashioned attention span, So, happy birthday, Sly Stallone, too.
Oh yeah.
Talk about a gritty bootstrapping success story. That's pretty relevant for us.
Absolutely. Yeah. The story behind Sylvester Stallone writing Rocky is, I mean, it's next level. Painted his windows black because he kept finding himself look outside. Sold his dog. Tore his phone off the wall.
He bought the dog back, though.
He did buy the dog back. Yeah.
Don't start dialing PETA.
Right. And I'll tell you what. Something I didn't know until I took my family to Key West last year, there's Key West is, which I didn't know this till last year either. But Key West is a bit of a haven for the artist type, which I think is probably well known to a lot of people. There's several authors that had some homes down there. I'm blanking on Ernest Hemingway, for example, had a home down there. There are a lot of people who come and record music out of this little shack looking place. And a lot of just regular artists go down there as well. Well, because of that, they've got a ton of art galleries, and I don't look like it. I look like a simple man, but I really appreciate art. And I walked into one, and it was a ton of Sylvester Stallone originals. And one of them was, he took some of the original manuscripts from Rocky and pasted them onto canvas, and then wrote words over them like grit, determination, kind of in a very, very cool art. It was not in my price range to bring one home, though.
Yeah, it's I think it's interesting, because it's a lot of us. We try to post content, and that kind of relies on the creative side, which seems opposed to the business, the practicality and just the basic black and white of spreadsheets and whatnot. So, I do appreciate someone who can be both creative and a good businessman, a successful businessman at the same time. That's I'm envious of that.
Yeah. And it's probably kind of an unfair thing for us to pigeonhole what you need as a business person, because you look at someone like Steve Jobs, I mean, the guy just absolutely crushed it. And he was a creative first, and then business guy second. And I'm sure there are a lot of other stories like that. Of course, I don't have them off the top of my head, but that's interesting.
So yeah, Deal Hunter. It is football to the rest of the world. This is a U.S. centric show, unfortunately. Hopefully, our out of international viewers knew what I meant when I said soccer. So
they don't mind us being troglodytes for just a little while, I hope.
Yeah.
So, and guys, we'll get to your guys' questions. Make sure to drop them in the chat. We'll get to all of them. The Sunday show is a little bit laid back. But first, in 1955, a guy that you all may know, Colonel Harlan Sanders, was 65 years old. And he had just lost his roadside restaurant to changes he had no control over, much like Amazon sellers. And when a new highway was built, it diverted all the traffic and did not have a stop for his little restaurant. So, with nothing left, he ended up packing up his bags, packed up his fried chicken recipe, jumped in his car, and then he went and he started knocking on doors looking for investors. Well, he got 1,009 rejections. On the 1,010th, someone finally said, "Yeah, let's see what this little thing can do." Well, that single yes became KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken, and it turned Colonel Sanders into a household name. Now, why does that matter? Because almost every successful Amazon seller kind of starts the same way. I've heard of tons of failed first attempts, lots of bad buys, getting confused and irritated, trying to learn software fees and all the other things. Doubts, a lot of doubts about whether it even works. And for the people who decide to go another direction, usually a little cognitive dissonance about how much of a scam it actually is. Well, all of these things are actually why the OA Challenge exists. It's a 14-day live course. We do it live, as Bill O'Reilly would say, starting on July 14th. And it's built to take you from, I think I'm doing this wrong, to, no, I got this. You're going to learn how to source with confidence, how to spot profitable products using Keepa and other tools, avoid the painful mistakes that most sellers make early on and middle of the way through, and build a sourcing system or systems that can compound on each other. And if you've ever had trouble or sourcing is hampering you, like this is exactly who we built the OA Challenge for. So if you're interested, we start next Monday, July 14th, and get registered over at oachallenge.com. That's oachallenge.com.
All right. So yet again, I forgot to grab, I believe it's a Seneca quote about teachers, but I did find one just today. I was going through some emails and I found this quote, and I was going to save it for the newsletter in case I decided to talk about the OA Challenge, which you guys know I'm never shy about talking about how much the OA Challenge helped me and made me a better seller. So I want to address this kind of started a whole rabbit hole. So indulge me if you don't mind. But essentially, there are anti-guru people out there, right? And I came to realize that most of the anti-guru people are really anti-grifter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they don't draw that distinction, right? They're anti people who slap together just a generic course, charge a whole bunch of money, get as much cash as they can, and they're not really helping their students out. However, and I've long said, a good teacher is worth their weight in gold. I found this from Thiago Forte today, who is the author of Building Your Second Brain. I think we both read that book. We both enjoyed it. He's very strong personality in the productivity and organizing your thoughts and getting stuff done space. But he actually said today, I found this. It says the key insight: one focused teacher is worth more than 20 scattered resources. Use your mentors as filters to cut through information overload. And I made a point to highlight that and save it to my Readwise so that I could keep it forever and ever. But that's strong, and it's worth pointing out, because you'll hear people say, "Oh, well, all the information's on YouTube. You can go get it for free. Why would you pay any money?" Like, number one, skin in the game forces you to pay attention. You have an investment, so you want to make sure it holds it holds certain people accountable as far as taking in the information, because you're on the hook for some cash. And number two, more importantly, is people learn different ways. Some people don't have the discipline to go through YouTube. And number one, newer sellers don't know what's good information, what's bad information. And there's so much out there now. You need someone to help you through, which is exactly what that Thiago Forte quote is telling you, right? And then other people simply need a curriculum. They need to be walked through the different steps, and that's essentially what you're getting, because since you do these lives, you're 2 hours every single day for 14 days, you are a live audience. You're a live mentor, which for certain people is incredibly valuable. And that's kind of where I slotted in. That's why I find the OA challenge repeatedly very, very useful. So I wanted to make sure I shared that today.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm gonna do my best to bring my A game. Yeah, Luke, I get this. I was looking for some things today, and YouTube does make it a little difficult sometimes when you've got to wade through a bunch of things. All right, we've got a couple pieces of news today. We've got Chris shared something with me last night that was just so good. We've got to share that with you guys today. And of course, if you guys have questions, make sure to drop them and we'll get to those as well. But right off the bat, Lululemon versus Costco. Lululemon has just dropped a lawsuit on Costco, accusing them of selling confusingly similar apparel that mimics their signature styles. So think their $128 scuba hoodies and ABC pants, and Costco is, quote unquote, recreating them for under $20. But this lawsuit isn't just about the pants. It's kind of a window into the growing tension between premium brands and what's called the dupe economy. So let's talk about this lawsuit in a nutshell. Number one, it's been filed in California federal court by Lululemon against Costco. Lululemon claims Costco's Kirkland, Danskin, Jockey, and other labels. So it seems like they're not just going after Costco. They're actually naming other defendants in this as well. Infringe on 6 specific trademarked designs. One example is a Costco hoodie priced at $8 versus Lululemon's $118 scuba hoodie. Lulu argues that these dupes mislead consumers into thinking they're buying the real thing, or at least something that's authorized by the brand. So Lululemon is asking for a jury trial. They're asking for monetary damages and a ban on sales of the alleged infringing products. Now, why does this even matter? Okay, well, number one, I found it interesting, but two, this lawsuit is tapping into several key dynamics that every arbitrage and every private label seller really should pay attention to. Number one, it's the rise of the dupe economy. We actually talked about this last week or the week before when we talked about the rise of fragrances and who's running the fragrances. Dupes, they used to be taboo. They were something you bought in a shady alley out of the back of some lady's town and country, or you went down into some weird basement in Chinatown and were basically forced to buy one if you wanted to get back out. Well, now they're mainstream and they're celebrated. I mean, go look up dupes on TikTok and you're going to see them all over the place. Heck, I was forced to go to the mall yesterday, and the fragrance dupe Alt had a pop-up shop there. And of course, I walked in and started looking because I knew exactly what it was. TikTok, Reddit, and Wirecutter reviews have also fueled the popularity for Costco's versions of Lululemon gear. And Gen Z and millennials in particular are really driving this shift, kind of prioritizing look and function over brand loyalty. Like they're the least loyal to brands of any generation so far. But let's talk a little bit about design and functionality in IP law. Lululemon isn't just suing over logos, of course. They're trying to use trade dress and design patents, which are arguably much, much harder to prove in court. They're even defending things like product color names, like the color Tidewater teal and the shape of a garment. All right. So if this lawsuit succeeds, it could set a new precedent for fashion IP, making it riskier to sell clothing lookalikes, even if they don't have a brand name on them. But this lawsuit is already being won in the court of public opinion. Public reaction has mostly sided with Costco. I would imagine you may have guessed that. Consumers see Lululemon's move as tone deaf in a time when budget conscious shopping is kind of the norm now. And the lawsuit has arguably given Costco free PR, drawing attention to just how similar and affordable their clothing is. Matter of fact, my favorite shorts right now, and I hate to admit this because this seems to come with a pair of Air Monarchs, but my favorite shorts right now are Costco shorts. They were all of $9, and they're fantastic. I don't know. If I were Lululemon, if I were in the C-suite, I'm not sure that I would want to be going up against a company whose CEO threatened to murder someone over raising the cost of hot dogs. It seems like when some real stuff is on the line, they're going to be just as cutthroat.
Yeah, it's pretty difficult for me to figure out the motivation behind this action from Lululemon's perspective.
Even if they 37% drop in their stock price might be the driving force.
Yeah, although I highly doubt it's Costco's marketing is making people choose $8 yoga pants over $128 yoga pants. This seems like a very difficult case. Maybe it's the free PR or whatever, because I don't understand how you could claim ownership over the design of yoga pants. Number one, they seem to be a different shape depending on the person wearing them, like by design. I don't understand that. And you're right. This is great for Costco. It's certain, and basically all of your points under the public opinion is basically everything that I was thinking as you were reading through that information. I don't understand why. You think they would want to, if they wanted to go after somebody, they try to take up some sort of case against a Chinese factory or something like that. You could really get behind something like that. Like, oh, they're trying to stop these cheap knockoffs. But this is extremely tone deaf. And I tell you what, I continue to be more and more of a fan of Gen Z because that is one frugal generation. I continue to like them the more and more I hear about them. As long as I don't interact with them, it's a positive.
It's the slang, isn't it? That's what
it is.
You love the frugality, but once they call you bruh or tell you you've got no riz, it just goes right downhill from there.
Yes.
And Deal Man, you're absolutely right. I have never worn Lululemon leggings, but my wife has a few pair, and I can definitely tell that there's a quality difference. Like it's thicker fabric, et cetera, and so on. But if I can get them for $8 compared to 128, I might be willing to go with a lower quality item.
Yeah, we were talking about I sent you that article. I think it was from the Atlantic, about the newest wealth flex of keeping your curtains open, that was new to me. But yeah, I don't see, like quality and well, here's a good example. I should probably look this up, but like, what's the market cap for U.S. Polo Association? I just saw an email, or actually, I think it was Top Cash Back or something, actually had a boosted cashback offer for U.S. Polo Association. Now, and this is, I went to Catholic school, grade school, high school, and first year of college even. And I had uniforms for 12 years of my schooling, and it had to have a collar, so we were wearing polo shirts, right? And all the rich kids had Ralph Lauren polo, and then my mom, trying to save a buck, would try to get me to wear this U.S. Polo Association. It's like, I can't do that. That's a death sentence for me, mother. Like, just get me something plain. It was easier to just go plain than to, put a highlighter on the fact that you were trying to wear a dupe at that time, which the dupe economy kind of pisses me off, since I went through all that as a kid. But that's a separate tangent. But you know what I mean? But that's essentially, that's the longest running dupe that I can think of, and the U.S. Polo Association is fairly big. Were you able to look up those numbers?
They're not a public company, but it does say billions of dollars.
Yeah. So, and that's a very clear ripoff of Ralph Lauren's pony, emblem that he puts on all of his clothes. So, I don't know. This is, where does this go? I mean, because there's two levels of dupes, right? There's, trying to change a letter and just be similar enough to not get sued, and get some sales, like U.S. Polo Association. And then there's stuff sold out of trunks, that is just clearly not really Louis Vuitton, so I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to be following this. It's gonna be interesting how this ends up playing out. I think Lululemon is going to be in for a rough time. All right, we've got a little more news, but of course, you guys have questions. Make sure to drop them in the chat. Is July the new November for retail? So we all know it's not just Amazon anymore. Matter of fact, if you read my newsletter on Friday, you'd see all the stores that are running competing sales. But retailers across just about every category are now turning July into a battleground for consumer dollars. And it's kind of reshaping the quote unquote seasonal sales calendar. So what's changing? Well, of course, Prime Day is going longer. Amazon Prime Day now spans 4 days, July 8th through 11th, up from 2 in past years. Walmart, Target, Kohl's, and Best Buy are all launching competing events. Matter of fact, I think Walmart Plus members get to start today. Same with Target, and Kohl's is already running their summer sale. And it's more than just copycatting. Like, they're doing a whole calendar resets now, turning July into this high stakes, high volume sales month. And the crazy thing is, non-traditional players are also going kind of all in on this. Dick's Sporting Goods is doing its first ever deal days, July 7 through 10. Meijer launched a 10-week summer grocery price drop that started back in mid-May. Dollar General has 7 days of savings starting today, offering 50% off daily deals and over 1,000 markdowns. Sam's Club is locking prices on 1,000 summer essentials through July 22nd. Aldi, of all places, is even slashing prices on 400 or more items for the summer events and holidays. So why is this happening? Well, people are saying that inflation is forcing this shift in timing. Retailers are pulling forward these value-driven events to try to keep wallet share before back to school in Q4. Although Target is really trying to take aim at that back to school, with the majority of their sales going to be on back to school items. And July is now its own sales season. We used to wait for post Memorial Day sales and clearances for back to school. And now July is its own mini sales holiday, basically the entire month. Like, everything is just getting moved around, and it's kind of nuts.
Yeah, and it all kind of just blends into nothing from a consumer perspective. I don't, I mean, sure, it's great, but what is a 10-week promotion? Like, I can't even remember when my 50% off Apple TV promo is going to end. I had to do a Google reminder just to, because it's going to go back to full price, and I'm going to forget to cancel it. And I mean, this is all just, it's all just noise. I mean, it's good news for Amazon sellers. It's and I tell you what, Saul was on the money with the opportunity for Amazon to Amazon flips. That is this is going to be some prime sourcing time right about now. So, but yeah, I don't, it's kind of a weird marketing thing where you certainly can't not join in if you're a major retailer, right? I mean, how can you see everyone else putting stuff on sale and just kind of ignore it and just kind of trust your customer base to continue on? I mean, that doesn't sound like a productive strategy, So I think it's probably peer pressure at this point from the retailer's perspective, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and peer pressure is winning big time. And you said it's going to be a good time for Amazon to Amazon flips, and you're right. And I saw a couple people today say, I can't do Amazon flips during Prime sales because I don't use my Prime membership for flips. You don't have to. Not all of the deals are going to be for Prime members only. So, that's something you don't need to worry about. There are going to be plenty of other deals that are out there that will not require Prime benefits.
Plus, the one of the main benefits that I would think would be the mirrored discounts from major retailers, just trying to match Amazon's pricing, just like Amazon does with the other major retailers. That may be the biggest opportunity for profit anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah. That was, matter of fact, Stahl actually tweeted that earlier today. He said one of the biggest things you can do is look at these price drops and then go find out what retailer Amazon is price matching. Easy way to be able to, if it's not just an Amazon to Amazon flip, being able to find a source, but also being able to buy a whole lot more if the price is really that good. All right. Let's talk about burritos on layaway. You can now split your burrito into 4 payments. And what the heck does this say about how we live and spend in 2025? Well, Chris and I have harped on this a ton. Buy now, pay later is exploding, and it's not just big purchases anymore. Services like Klarna, Afterpay, and Affirm now show up everywhere. I've seen it at the grocery store. I've seen it at the gas station. They're even built into things like DoorDash. You can even do it for small items like Sephora lotions. And Klarna is the one who just partnered with DoorDash. So you can finance your lunch if you need to. Now, why is this happening? Well, it's not just about convenience. It's also, they say, now I will say that this article comes from a place that is typically slanted in one direction. So, but I'm just pulling out the information from this article. So, say it's also a reflection of economic stress and structural stagnation. They say wages haven't kept up, housing is unaffordable, entry-level jobs are drying up, and for Gen Z and millennials, debt kind of feels like this default setting rather than this cautionary tale that they're supposed to stay away from. Apparently, some people are even using debt as identity and kind of a coping mechanism. For older generations, debt was always a long-term and a tool for long-term investments, buying houses, paying for education. For younger people, it's now seemed to be using for buying small luxuries, kind of as an act of agency in an economy that they feel closed off of. Economic commentator Kyla Scanlon calls this a poor impulse control economy, where the system, not just the individuals, promotes short-term spending over long-term stability. And let's talk a little bit about credit scores and things like that. The American dream has shifted, it seems. Owning a home seems to be out of reach for a ton of folks, especially for younger folks. But you can afford a dopamine hit through a $30 mascara split into 4 payments. Buy now, pay later also feels safe. It doesn't charge interest, and it doesn't ding your credit score yet. But we talked about that the other week too. Some of that information is going to start making its way into credit scores. And the other thing is losses at Klarna and others are starting to pile up. I believe Klarna is the only one that's publicly traded. So that information is public. The other ones don't have to share it. But a lot of this casual debt is starting to go bad. Some say that buy now, pay later is kind of a red flag. It's not just about consumer habits. It's kind of this symptom of a feeling of economic disempowerment. And what feels like agency, I'll buy what I want even if I'm broke, might actually just be people kind of resigning from the whole system. Kind of a signal that young consumers have given up on catching up to the Joneses. I don't know. I think this is interesting. I think that buy now, pay later is an absolute trap. I also think that we do need these dopamine hits, and we got to get past them somehow.
Yeah, it's the new version of the payday loan entrapment, essentially. You're leveraging future dollars on instant gratification. Which is the heart of a lot of poor economic decisions. That's what people had to do with these payday loans and whatnot. So, this is, we saw this coming a mile away, right? It's interesting. I sent you, I responded to your tweet, and it was a connection that I hadn't ever made before. But it was a connection between wealth and health. And I can't remember who said it now. But they're basically drawing the parallels between, both being wealthy and being healthy. They both require discipline, self-control, and probably most importantly, delaying gratification. And that seems to be a phrase that we hear a heck of a lot lately, and it's always attached to something negative. You don't, I can't remember anybody saying succumbing to instant gratification is a positive. It's usually associated with something bad. So, and I know people close to me, I have a family member that feels like she's stuck, buying groceries on buy now, pay later. And it's like you're leveraging your future dollars, like on food that, went down the toilet weeks ago, but yet you have your future paychecks tied to that. It's, something has to give. I don't know. Maybe we need to get more people out of the fantasy book aisle into the business book aisle, right?
I agree. All right. One last thing, and then we'll get to your guys' questions. So it's time to start throwing them in there if you've got them. We're going to talk a little bit about brain hacks for Amazon sellers. Chris sent these to me last night, and I thought they were so good. Of course, they sent me down a rabbit trail, and I read over, I don't know, probably 1,500 words or so on these things. And so, of course, they're making it on the show today. So if we're being honest, arbitrage is simple. Okay. It's not easy, right? And it can feel like a grind at times, whether you're scanning, thousands of products, maybe prepping shipments, or just staring at spreadsheets. Motivation easily runs pretty dry. But what if you could make your brain want to do these tasks? Well, that's why we're going to talk about 2 psychology hacks that can kind of change how you approach selling on Amazon. Number one is called dopamine anchoring, and the second is called the expectation effect. So, what is dopamine anchoring? All right. Well, dopamine anchoring is when you pair a boring task with something you enjoy, like music, snacks, or an environment you really love. Think of it like I got to take my medicine, but if I do it with a spoonful of sugar, well, that's a little bit better. Okay. So by pairing the unfun parts of selling, like prep, admin, even sourcing at times, with something that releases dopamine, you actually train your brain to look forward to the task. So some real examples. Listen to some hype music or a podcast while sourcing. This is actually what gets me to go out for a walk. I get to listen to a podcast or a book when I go out for a walk. I don't necessarily want to. I don't want to touch grass. I work best behind the glow of a screen. Treat yourself to a special coffee, but only when you do admin work. Make prepping an event. Flip the TV on, pull out your favorite snacks. I would suggest something high protein or high fiber and stay away from the candy. And boxes end up getting packed a whole heck of a lot faster. Also, make sure to wipe your hands in between taking a snack and touching product. Now, what is the expectation effect? Well, your brain doesn't just respond to experiences, it actually predicts them. And so this means that your beliefs going into a task can actually affect your outcome. You expect sourcing to be frustrating? It probably will be. You expect to find winners? Your brain is going to end up staying sharper and more motivated. That's what the expectation effect is. And it's not just, it's not just us spouting these things off. It's actually been backed by studies across sports, medicine, and performance psychology. Now, what are some practical applications? Well, sourcing doesn't have to suck. I've heard of a lot of people say that, oh, it takes so long, et cetera, and so on. Well, number one, give yourself a dopamine anchor. All right. Only let yourself listen to your favorite playlist when you source. If you ever need one, just go on YouTube and look up Big Booty Mix. It's a stupid name, but it is actually some pretty good music. What about an expectation hack? Well, start each session saying something like, I'm an expert sourcer or I'm a treasure hunter and I'm just a few clicks away from finding the next profitable product. All right. What about prepping shipments? Well, your dopamine anchor could be watching a show. Maybe you only watch your favorite show when you get to prep. There's a lot of people I know who do this with the treadmill. They hop on the treadmill and that's the only time they can watch their favorite program. Or set something like a reward after you pack so many boxes. Give yourself a little treat. What about the expectation hack? Well, every box that I tape up and close is future profit. Like you know that it needs to be done. You know that it's important and exactly what you're going to get. Admin work. Your dopamine anchor could be something like lighting a candle. I happened to actually buy a new candle yesterday. I'm very excited to try out when I have to do some boring work later tonight. You can use music. You can go and work in a cafe so it feels like you're not stuck in a hole. All right. And what about an expectation hack? Well, you can reframe it to be like, you know what? Doing this type of admin work is actually sharpening my edge as a business owner and as an Amazon seller. And then what about motivating your team or your VAs? Well, you can actually offer them dopamine by offering bonuses, offering praise, specific praise, celebrating wins and milestones. You can help them use the expectation hack by offering clear and positive feedback, showing them and telling them that you have confidence in their skills, and even setting the tone for their day via messages or meetings. All right. Now, what do you need to avoid? Well, don't let rewards become procrastination excuses. If your reward is, oh, you know what, for every profitable item I find, I get 10 minutes of time on TikTok, that can easily turn into 30 or 45 minutes without even blinking. If one of the anchors, the dopamine anchors, loses its spark, change it up or have multiple that you can use. And the expectation effect works best when the goals are positive and realistic. Okay. Selling on Amazon's a long game. It's not always glamorous. I think that we've said that maybe more than anyone else. But if we arm ourselves with things like a couple of razors that we've talked about, some business laws that we've talked about, and a few psychological tools, you can actually rewire your brain to enjoy the process and, more importantly, stay consistent, make better decisions, even when things get hard. And finally, remember, motivation doesn't come before action. It's actually built through action. So use dopamine and the expectation hack to get moving and then stay moving.
Yeah, this is good stuff. Especially now, because I firmly believe. I sent you right before showtime. I sent you a tweet, and a lot of people in the space are thinking this is going to be a bit of a depression as far as third-party sellers go. The latest one had, the guy has tens of thousands of followers. It kind of, it depends on your attitude when you see something like that. My first thought was the Warren Buffett quote, be greedy when others are fearful, and vice versa. But that takes some discipline. It takes, you have to kind of monitor your attitude very carefully, but I firmly believe that as people leave the space, we've talked about the concept of competitive release before. You can look that up, but essentially in a nutshell, I think it's more of a pruning, and when you prune, it's overall, it's better health for, the hedge or whatever, or for the business as well. I think the people who come out on top right now, the people who can stick to it, that's why I think, taking the OA challenge, this is one of the best times to take it right now is because you need to make sure your skills are honed, because it's all in your attitude, and you can even, one thing you can do, we talk about, dopamine anchors and whatnot. You can even do that within your own business. Like you talked about sourcing. I do this with sourcing. My VAs are going through a rough patch right now. One of them has a personal issue and a newborn. Two separate things. I'm not saying newborns are personal issues. Although maybe you could make a case for that. But it's not fun. I kind of grit my teeth a little bit when I pull up their spreadsheet, and I'm like, I catch myself thinking like, man, this is going to be a giant waste of time. It's going to be a bunch of stupid stuff. Right. But I can actually, but then I also legitimately enjoy sourcing from the Storefront Stalker Pro dashboard, right? Because I know it's going to be a very short period of time before I find something profitable, and I'm going to get a win. I'm going to get something I can buy, and that's profit. And that's the whole freaking point, so I get excited. So I'll actually layer that. I'll say, all right, if I can get through a full day of my VAs on the spreadsheet, I'll go over and spend a half hour in Storefront Stalker Pro, so, and I'll kind of layer it. So that kind of forces me to get through the VA spreadsheet because I know the good stuff's coming if I just get through that day. And as soon as I finish that final line on the spreadsheet, I can move over to Storefront Stalker Pro. And what you end up doing is I focus on Storefront Stalker Pro. So it almost turns into the good stuff that my VAs do actually find is gravy at that point. It's like, oh, I popped 3 good leads just from that. And now I'm moving to Storefront Stalker Pro, which is where I want to be anyway. So now the 3 from the VAs turn into, 5 more from Storefront Stalker Pro. Now I've got 8 ASINs that I can purchase and put, basically depending on volume, I essentially have my sourcing done for the day simply because I anchored the sourcing I don't look forward to with the sourcing that I do.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. All right, let's answer some of your guys' questions. So Deal Hunter has one here. Hey there, new Amazon fulfillment dimensions are 36 by 25 by 25. Is the weight still 50 pounds max? Yes. They did not change the weight on those. Hey, Sylvia, appreciate that. We try to bring something new to the table every, twice a week. All right, Deal Hunter, could you guys explain exactly what the multi-channel fulfillment means and how it works? Yeah. So multi-channel fulfillment is when you've got your items at the Amazon warehouse, so they're eligible for FBA and all of that. You can also fulfill that via multiple channels. So maybe you sell on eBay, maybe you sell on Walmart, maybe you've gotten approved to Target. Well, rather than either handling your own inventory or your own shipments to customers, you can actually use multi-channel fulfillment to ship to customers on other platforms. Matter of fact, Walmart and Amazon are even playing nice right now. Walmart has said specifically it's okay to use Amazon's multi-channel fulfillment. They just got to make sure it goes in a plain box, which you can mark to do from Amazon. They'll send it in a plain box, and Amazon has actually cut their fee on multi-channel fulfillment for items going to Walmart customers. Strange bedfellows, but it's good for the seller. It's good. We'll take it. So that's all it is. All right, AMZ with me. I DM'd last week about benefits of having two LLCs. Can you address that today? Yeah, absolutely. So, Chris, this was actually something you brought up about having multiple LLCs, multiple businesses, and being able to refer each other to business credit cards. And he was like, how could I even do that? You want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah. Each LLC, I mean, as far as like the credit card part, referrals are fairly easy. You have business channels, then you have personal channels. If you read anything about credit card hacking and any of that stuff, one of the main ways to accumulate these points, these travel points and credit card perks, is to involve your significant other. Because think of it as double the sign-up bonuses. I can refer my wife to a card, she can collect the sign-up bonus that I've collected as well. So now if it's 100,000 point bonus, that turns into a 200,000 point bonus just simply by referring your spouse. So it's that's an easy win that way. And then you can kind of build that network within your own businesses as well. It's not frowned upon. It's kind of like an understood way of working the system. And if you need, you can find referral links. Make sure you're paying attention to your emails from your credit cards. They'll kind of keep you posted on any kind of juiced offers. And some are better than others. Amex is typically, the referrals are going to be 10,000 to 20,000 points. You'll want to catch it. I think right now, unless it's a personalized offer, they actually have that boosted to 20,000 points when you refer other businesses to your business cards. So it's basically just establishing two separate entities. I don't know if that's I wouldn't necessarily make that the reason to set up a second LLC. You probably want to make sure talk to your accountant or whoever does your books for you on the merits of, because I think the question originated with setting up a second LLC to sell on Walmart, or whether you should do it under the same LLC. So, it's probably not the reason to do it specifically, but if you choose to go down that path, if you figure out that that's the better way to do it, credit card referrals back and forth between companies should absolutely be taken advantage of.
Yeah, absolutely. If you listen to, we had a friend of ours put on a credit card class, a credit card challenge. And Tom is he is a magnet for money. He just has this, he's got this Midas touch. And so, he's got multiple income streams across Amazon, across um, brick and mortar businesses, all kinds of things. And one thing he does, he makes sure that there is an LLC for everything. Even if it's just a business idea, he'll set up an LLC, and then the other LLCs start referring the other LLC to business credit cards. It's the guy is a genius.
Yeah. And I know some people even, I know a lot of Amazon sellers and entrepreneurs in general are loving the real estate angle. The most recent podcast that we have out is an excellent example on how to parlay Amazon success into real estate success. I know some sellers that, they'll have an LLC for their properties, and it's all managed under that. And, so you could certainly have your property LLC, open up credit cards that are referred from your Amazon LLC. Yeah, it's there's a lot of really profitable wiggle room when you do that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Speaking of real estate, I reached out to Michaela, who we've had on the show before. Excuse me. And she has completely pivoted away from Amazon, and now she flips properties. And I think she just bought her 50th door in 2 years. And so we're going to have her back on the pod. I'll tell you what, she is someone I admire. She is young. She is driven. She has not made just one business work, but 2 businesses. It's been great to watch her.
Yeah. 50 properties in 2 years in this market is incredible. Because I find myself like wanting to wait, and it's been the same thing over and over again. It's like, man, the prices have to come down. This has to be a bubble. I've been saying that for 2 or 3 years now, so, and she just got after it, and she's doing extremely well.
Deal Man, are you guys noticing any regating trends? Some, I got laughed at the other day because I said someone was, real down on ungating. And I was like, listen, I said, over the past month, I've gotten ungated in over 1,000 different brands, all auto ungated. And someone laughed at me. I was like, oh, well, how many of them are you still ungated for? So I went through, I wasted my time, and I went through 500 of them, and I actually went all the way to the list screen. And there wasn't a single one that had been regated for me. Now, are there other things that have gotten regated? Yeah, absolutely. I got gated out of Adidas, and Amazon said it was just going to be the stuff that Adidas still sells. But for me, I got gated out of everything, although they didn't take Adidas originals. All right. So yeah, there is some regating. There are some brands that are going first party. But I don't know that it's the end of the world. Since January 1 of this year, I've been ungated in around 3,200 different brands, just auto ungated. So I will be the first to admit, I had to brute force my way to get that many. It's probably been 20 or 30 hours worth of work. But it is still doable. Maurice, how do you handle unprofitable items in your catalog due to price drops and tanking? When will you make a decision to liquidate? So this needs to be an individual decision that is made. However, for me, my repricer comes down to a 0% ROI at 60 days, and we will take a loss at 90 days. Now, saying that, if you have a repricer worth its salt, that does not necessarily mean that you're going to get a 0% ROI on the item or a negative ROI. Now, you may, okay, that will happen. However, what you do is the minimum your minimum ROI comes down, and of course your minimum price comes down, and those kind of things. But that's what I do personally. Some people hold longer, but I don't like to do that.
Yeah, and if I may, and this may seem like splitting hairs a little bit, Maurice, but I think this is going to resonate with some people. I think you should reverse the phrasing of that question, because I think for some people, when you write it that way, you're looking at the item first and then asking when to liquidate. And I think you should reverse it. I think you should establish a liquidation strategy regardless of the item, because that's going to help you detach yourself from using emotion in the process, which is a dangerous thing, because too many sellers, kind of fall in love with the numbers when they sourced it, and then they'll get ticked off because they thought they found something and it wasn't from a lead list. It was just from manual sourcing. It's like, man, this thing's great. And you get all excited for the profit that you're going to get. And then all of a sudden a lead list finds it, slaps it on a lead list. Next thing you know, there's double-digit sellers come pouring onto the ASIN. The price goes down. The profit is nowhere near what it was. And you start making these irrational, bargaining statements in your head, like, well, maybe I should just wait it out, blah, 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 but so, which is why I say, and then all of a sudden, you're paying long-term storage fees. And if it doesn't sell out, and, it just could lead to bad things. So I think you should establish your liquidation strategy and then put the items in it and just let the process run, date your inventory, don't marry it.
Absolutely. Chad, how do you keep track of different buy costs and margins when replenishing a single ASIN over time, specifically with changing coupons and discounted gift cards for that same ASIN? Well, it depends on how you track, but any inventory management software worth its salt is going to allow you to have different buy costs on different dates. Or if you're just using a spreadsheet in QuickBooks, it's going to be the same thing. You're just going to put in a new entry with your current buy costs. And personally, we have both. Like, we have a sourcing sheet where all the buy costs go in by month. And then we have software that we use as well to keep track of inventory and inventory management. And so it goes in both places.
Now, so here's a question for you. I was going through today, and I think the most underrated account health exercise that you can do is promptly deleting your listings when you sell out.
Mm-hmm.
The shorter the gap between deletion and going out of stock, the shorter the gap is, I think the more protected you are. I think that's pretty underrated. But anyway, so I was going through today, I sorted everything, my inactives, and I was going to delete a bunch of stuff. And turns out, don't let some gurus know, because this will be part of a paid course. But going through your out of stocks and just kind of scrubbing it against your sourcing sheet is actually a pretty decent way to replenish some items. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. Something worked. Had a coupon code again. So I re-upped on it. Now, the thing is, the retail price changed slightly. I mean, I'm talking 40 cents, right? It's like $23.45 versus $23.85 when I bought it 2 months ago. Do you create a new SKU, or do you replenish that SKU and allow your software to simply average the buy cost?
It's probably best to create a new SKU. Probably.
Yeah, I was afraid of that.
I need to ask somebody smarter than me, but I'm guessing that's probably the right answer. I'm not saying that's what I've always done.
No, and it's not what I want to do. Like, that's one of those things where that feels like the right answer, but I would rather, for some reason, I want to hold up the integrity of my replenishments. You know, I don't want to have to take two different SKUs, combine them to give me, you know, my lifetime ROI on this ASIN, you know. And that may be for stupid reasons. I'm not sure that there's anything constructive behind it, but that's just kind of what I default to for some reason.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Rosemary, good to see you. Glad you hopped in here. Deal Hunter, can I change my Amazon storefront name? Yeah, absolutely. You cannot change your storefront ID though. So if someone has saved you, you know, in the past or ever stalked your storefront and they saved your storefront ID, they've still got it. And can I have two storefronts with two LLCs? Luke actually shared the best practices for having multiple storefronts. The answer is yes. If you have a legitimate reason for having multiple storefronts, then yes, you could have more than one storefront. Absolutely. Now, in my opinion, if you're going to do it, you need to have a legitimate business reason, like Amazon states out. So, for example, maybe one account is for selling used books, maybe another is for doing online arbitrage, maybe a third is for private label. Okay. Maybe a fourth is for teaching. That is also a legitimate reason. All right. I would suggest that if you do this, that each one has its own credit card, it has its own LLC, it has its own address, it has its own computer, its own internet, all of that stuff. Now, that becomes a bit unwieldy depending on how many accounts you're running. But you want to try to have, as I'm trying to think of the term for it that is no longer not PC, firewall. The term, the PC term, or the term that is okay to use today is firewall between any of those things, because Amazon is a tech company disguised as a retail company. And so they tend to find those things. Do you recommend a separate LLC for Amazon, eBay, and Walmart, or just use the same LLC for all three marketplaces? Currently, I have the same one for all three marketplaces. Like retail business is just one LLC. Other businesses have other LLCs. And is there a way to know which brand you are ungated on without checking them one by one? No, I wish there was. You can go into storefronts and use some tools to check on whether or not you can sell each product, but there's not a way to get like a list of brands that you're ungated in, at least not that I'm aware of. That would make life so easy.
Right.
All right. Any other questions, thoughts, concerns that you guys want to go over before we wrap up this Sunday show? No? All right. Chris, I could not come up with a dad joke this week. I searched for a good 45 minutes and I did not find anything that didn't make even me groan. So unfortunately, we're going to have to go without a dad joke this week.
Yeah, man, I know I heard a couple, but I can't recall them when I need them.
Yeah. We've got an exciting guest this week on the podcast. We'll be interviewing tomorrow. We've got the toy investor, someone who does a lot of long-term holds, a lot of Lego flips. They got a great email newsletter. If you've got questions that you want to ask someone who invests long-term in toys, Legos, and things like that, head over to Twitter. I've got a post all about it. You can knock them down there because I'm just now getting that finished up so that we're ready for tomorrow. But thanks for hanging out with us on a Sunday. We'll be back this Wednesday at 5:30 to do this all over again. Hope you guys have a great week.